Thank you all for joining us for today's webcast announcing Microsoft Office 365, the future of business productivity in the cloud webcast with Restaurant.com, presented by Mitesh Patel and Restaurant.com's VP of IT Operations, Bill Blount. My name is Maris Mead, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for Neudesic and the moderator for today's webcast. This webcast is presented by Mitesh Patel, Neudesic Solution Architect, and Bill Blount, the VP of IT Operations for Restaurant.com. Bill Blount is joining us today as a guest speaker to share how Restaurant.com migrated to vPOS in the cloud. We are very excited to have both of them present for us this morning. Today's webcast will also be shown on November 10th. So if you have anyone you'd like to pass this on to, we will be sending out a little blurb along with the webcast recording. If you're all logged on, you should be able to see a title slide that states Neudesic's webcast, announcing Microsoft Office 365. There was a brief intro earlier regarding features within Live Meeting. To briefly recap, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the session by typing them in. To ask a question, click on the Q&A verbiage located in the toolbar on the top left side of your screen. Type your question, then click the Ask button. Please note all questions will be held until the end. We will also be using the seating chart feature within Live Meeting. Changing your feedback color within this tool provides feedback to the presenter. To provide feedback, click on the feedback menu found in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Select your feedback color. Your seat in the conference center will display your selected color. Lastly, this webcast is being recorded and will be available via the Neudesic website. We will email you when the link is available. If everyone is ready, please make sure your seat color is green. At this time, I'd like to turn our presentation over to Mitesh.
All right, thank you, Meredith. Can everybody hear me okay? I'll take that as a yes then. So today we're going to talk about the new future of productivity in the cloud, Microsoft Office 365. As you may have heard the announcement, Microsoft has changed its current productivity suite, which was named vPOS, and they've changed it to Office 365. Today we're going to talk about the current offering, the future offering around Office 365, and talk about a implementation strategy that Neudesic has put together to help clients like yourselves to move from your on-premise to the off-premise cloud offering. So today's agenda, as you can see, we're going to talk a little bit about what is the future of productivity in the cloud, speak a little bit about the current Microsoft offering, which is Business Productivity Online Suite. We're very, very thankful to have Bill Blount today from Restaurant.com to go over a case study and present his findings, what values he found in the current vPOS environment. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Office 365 suite, its current offerings, what are the differences between the current vPOS offering and Office 365. We'll speak a little about Neudesic service offerings, how can we help you migrate, and then we'll have a brief Q&A session at the very end. So what is Office 365? What is the future of productivity? Microsoft has spent a lot of time and a lot of money building a on-premise and an off-premise environment. The future of productivity, as we see it at Neudesic, a lot of times the applications that we maintain are all on-premise. We're talking email, we're talking enterprise content management, SQL, things like that. Microsoft is really making a push to push a lot of those services into the cloud, to take a lot of those services that could be hosted in the cloud that are mostly utility-based services, and allowing the local business to focus on their business and not have to have such a large IT organization, such a large infrastructure, and really able to share some of that load. When you think of productivity, you think of items such as unified communication, business intelligence, enterprise content management, collaboration, enterprise search. These are all, basic core competencies of Microsoft. And one of the things that we will say, Microsoft is really pushing cloud, but it's cloud on your terms. Everything does not have to be in the cloud. Everything does not have to be on premise. As organizations migrate, they can move specific items to the cloud and test things out. As they gain more and more comfort, then they can move more and more to the cloud. This is not you have to do you have to flip the switch and immediately everything has to go to the cloud. So what you see here is a list of customers that are currently embracing cloud productivity with Microsoft. As you can see, it is a very large list, a lot of big names, and just some stats off the top of my head. We're talking about 40 million paying customers of Microsoft Online Services, over 9,000 business customers, more than 500 government entities, over 50% of the Fortune 500 are in the cloud. 70% are moving from notes to Exchange, and right now there's a global reach. It's available in 40 countries and localized into 20 languages. So you're in good company by going to the cloud. This is not new. This is this has been around for a while. It's just now being really pushed out to consumers and to businesses as a very easy option to be able to migrate to. So what is the current business productivity online suite? Today it's called BPOS, and AKA the 2007 experience. So if you look at it's based on 4 pillars: Exchange, SharePoint, Office Live Meeting, web conferencing, small group collaboration, and Office Communications Online, Group IM, instant messaging within the organization. It is a very robust service based on the current 2007 experience. And it was an offering that Microsoft has now moved into the current 2010 Office suite, which is now the Office 365. We're definitely going to be digging much deeper into the Office 365, but I did want to lay a groundwork around what is BPOS that's available today. So now I'd like to turn it over to Bill Blum. He is the Vice President of IT Services at Restaurant.com, and I'd like for him to share his experience with BPOS, some of his pain points, and some of the value that he found working with the current BPOS initiative.
Thanks, Mitesh. All right, Mitesh, can you go to the next slide, please? All right. So we had approximately 270 mailboxes, and we were in a fast growth mode. We're a smaller company growing very quickly. Along the way, we couldn't go out and build our own redundant, stable environment and hire a bunch of folks to manage it, Exchange servers and AD and all that good stuff. So we did find a third party that hosted an Exchange environment for us, and while they were a good partner, they were also another smaller company. As we were growing, we found the email environment was unstable. It was hosted in a single location. The spam filtering, we didn't have a way to manage it really, so lots of complaints from users about spam. Again, our company is growing really fast. We weren't adding staff, to keep up with all the other growth that we had, let alone to manage an environment. And to help keep our costs down, we were co-managing the environment. So while I had guys that were working as sysadmins and network guys on a production environment, we also would have to pull them out periodically to manage the Exchange environment. So storage, backups, keeping track of licenses, Active Directory, and since it was third party, we didn't integrate our Active Directory structure. So lots of challenges, and again, trying to manage costs, we want to keep our staff as focused as possible on the revenue generating systems. So lots of headaches, and we started hearing about BPOS and wanted to know a little bit more. So going to the next slide, please. So there's quite a few vendors out there that we spoke with. Most of them were Exchange hosting providers, lots of third parties, and we wanted to talk to Microsoft as well as Google. And it really came down to Microsoft and Google, compared not just the price point, but also all the features. We're primarily a Microsoft shop, but we didn't want to just say, oh, well, since we're all Microsoft, let's stay Microsoft. We really did a full evaluation of all the products and services, and really we got a strong, high level of comfort in knowing that the solution was Microsoft developed and Microsoft hosted. So we went to the next step before we made our final decision on Microsoft and Google and said, all right, let's talk to some partners that can help with migration. And it was fairly easy to find lots of folks who said they could do the migration. So we narrowed it down to just a few, and we invited some of those partners in, including Neudesic, and we wanted to know how well did they listen to us. You know, we're not a big fish, so, you know, a lot of companies are going to come in and say, well, there's not a whole lot there other than, you know, maybe just one or two quick projects. But Neudesic, you know, they didn't come in and make us feel like some small fish, a one-time project. They came in and we felt they treated us as a long-term partner. They really did their homework. They came prepared. They thoroughly interviewed our team, listened to all of our questions. They let us raise concerns. And they also pointed out a number of patches that we had to be aware of. So we had a real strong feeling from Neudesic, much more than any of the other partners we talked to. So after we did make the decision to go with Neudesic and Microsoft, we were not surprised, but you know, our decision was definitely validated that we chose the right partner. They set our expectations. They came in with a project team, an appropriately sized project team. They didn't throw a bunch of people at us. They threw the right number of people at us. Excuse me, didn't throw. They brought the right number of people to help us solve this our problem. Setting expectations was huge, and not only did they set expectations, but they were realistic, and they kept us up to date on progress. The project was completed on time, which was a challenge because we are a smaller company, again, very agile, moving very quickly, lots of projects going on, and with a small staff, it was very challenging making sure our folks are available. So they worked very well with us, making sure that all the tasks were completed on time. Everything is executed exactly as communicated. If there's any concerns, they raised them up early. They sat down with us. They worked through a plan to address any of the concerns, and they were fully engaged the entire process. And that includes even after the migration was complete. They circled back with us. They closed the project out, and any concerns we had working with Microsoft, from technical support through billing, they were there every step of the way. They would coordinate with their internal folks that handled the Microsoft relationship. They engaged the right people at Microsoft to help solve the problems and kept us up to date. So we always knew what was going on. There was never a question of, you know, is this problem ever going to get solved? It was always, here's where we're at, here's the plan, we're working on it, and everything is brought to resolution in a relatively timely manner. Just to give you an idea of some of the challenges we had one user who had 15 gig worth of email. And he'd never used Outlook, so we didn't run into that 2 gig file problem, but that made it real interesting when we went to migrate him from our former email provider over to Microsoft. So they worked with us not only to figure out a plan to migrate that user over, they also helped us come up with a plan to help get his email under control and gave us best practices that we could pass along to our users and work with them. Okay, next slide, please. So how has it been since we made the migration? My staff is much, much happier. We've got web interfaces to manage the number of users. We've been over on VPOS for about 6 months. We've gone from about 270 individual users to over 400, and it takes minutes to get a new user up and running. We, especially during Q4, we can add a significant number of seasonal help, and we can add 8 to 10 new employees in a matter of about 4 or 5 minutes, get them up and running on the email service. So very pleased with the amount of time that the staff has saved on managing email so they could focus on our revenue. We have approximately 100 people nationwide that are completely remote, so it makes their life real easy. They can use iPads, mobile devices, smartphones, Windows phones, BlackBerries, whatever they are most comfortable with. We can support them very easily using a service. And with mobile workforce, that gives them a huge advantage. They aren't locked down talking to our folks all the time, getting support. Again, eliminate our need to manage exchange-related servers, storage backups. We really do treat email as a service now. Just like the phone system, we want to have dial tone. We don't want to think about it. We want email to be there anytime we need it, and not have to think about, well, why is the email down? Why is it slow? And with going to BPOS, we get that geographically distributed, stable environment that would cost us several $100,000 to build out and manage compared to what we pay on a per-user basis today. Next steps, we're planning on rolling out SharePoint Online. We've got lots of folks who are very excited about it. Again, instead of managing our own server infrastructure and having experts on how to administer SharePoint, we can focus on providing the service to the users, let Microsoft handle the infrastructure management, and our users can focus on what functionality they want instead of waiting for us to get everything installed and patched and security set up and all that good, exciting stuff that it's nice to hand off to somebody else. So with that, Mitesh, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right. So let's talk about the current, the new announcement around Office 365, and you will see that there are some similarities between the current BPOS offering and what's coming in Office 365. One of the big differences that as far as the Office suite itself, part of the offering is that you do get the entire Office Professional 2010 suite, as part of the full offering. Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and Link Online. Link Online is the new branding for their communications server. So in the past, it was live meeting and IM. Now that's all consolidated under Link Online, and that is the new branding for that. So you'll see that more and more as we're going through the slides today. So what is the Office 365 value? It's delivering the power of cloud productivity to businesses of all sizes. It's helping them to save time, money, and free up those valued resources. And it's focused around better productivity. We're able to work smarter together. We're able to access this information anywhere, whether it's on my laptop, I'm on a mobile client, I'm on my phone, I'm on my iPad. We're working with what you know. These are familiar tools. People know Excel, they know Word, they know Outlook, they know PowerPoint. These are tools that we know. It's built on a very robust and secure and reliable system. Microsoft is providing a 99.9 uptime guaranteed. If they don't meet that, you get money back. And it still keeps a portion of IT control and efficiency. It keeps you in control. This is not a fantasy land where you're now going to outsource everything to the cloud and you can fire your IT department. That is one of the things that we've heard customers and people ask, and that is simply not true. You still need localized professionals to maintain your infrastructure and to maintain this infrastructure as far as Active Directory and user management. What it does is it allows your internal IT folks to focus on business and business value and not on what I like to call plumbing. Making sure that the network routers and those things are up and running. Let somebody else worry about that. Let Microsoft worry about that 24/7, 365, and use these services as utilities. Just like Bill said, to you, it's just like downtown. So speaking about the next generation of Office 365, they've made some major improvements in the actual management and control. If you're familiar with the old version or the current PPOS version, you have 3 or 4 different administration screens that you have to access to do certain features, and they are separate areas. They simplified that and really streamlined that into a single user interface. They've added in a new user access model, which allows you to have a much more granular role-based access. They've added in a end user access without having a single sign-on client, without having to have something sitting in the tray. It's now kind of integrated into, there's a one-time install, if you will, and then after that it is single sign-on. One of the biggest things that we find very compelling is federation. We're now able to federate and basically integrate your on-premise Active Directory with the off-premise cloud. So now you're able to do single sign-on between the 2 organizations. You're not having to maintain 2 lists and 2 sets of passwords. It can now be managed by your internal Active Directory admins, and that will then propagate up to the cloud. Again, another very powerful tool for admins is a command line PowerShell. Anyone that has been abused by Exchange in the past knows that you have to know PowerShell to be able to do certain commands. That just wasn't available in the PPOS version. They just didn't have that available. In the new 365, they're really making a lot of those administration level commands available, and those are things that you're able to execute via your local PowerShell. And they really introduced a lot of flexible billing options. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but it is no longer a one-size-fits-all. It is very granular and very much fit into what your organization needs now, and then expanding in the future. So moving over to the right, we talk a little bit about what are some of the new productivity features and capabilities. The big one to me is the fact that you can now get access to Office Professional as a service. It's a subscription service. It's still a locally installed application, so it isn't just the Office web apps, which is something that we will talk about. It is a full local copy of Office Professional, which allows you to gain access via Outlook, via Word, and all the Office 20 apps to gain access to those cloud-based systems out there. The new Link Online now combines the instant messaging communications and online meetings into a single service, and they've greatly improved the SharePoint Online and Exchange Online with the 2010 version. A lot of features that just weren't capable in the current 2007 version, PPOS V1. They are now available in the 2010 version. And finally, it's a much richer browser experience. It's a full OA client. It's not an OA Lite. So moving on. What are some of the features and some of the improvements based on each one of these major pillars? Again, going back to Office, there is a very flexible service offering, pay as you go, pay per user. These are not long-term clients. These are not 3-year enterprise agreements. You can still get into those agreements, but you don't have to with this service. It is the complete Office experience. It is not a lightened Office experience. It's full Office with integration up to the cloud. Simplifies user setup, and you're always accessing the latest version of the Office apps, including the Office web apps. The fact that you now have access and the ability to upgrade as Microsoft puts out updates, you're able to gain access to them also. So moving over to Exchange. It's a much richer browser experience with the new Outlook web app. It's no longer an Outlook web Lite, very strong OA app. Much stronger, improved inbox management, conversation views. If you're familiar with the Office 2010 suite now and you're using Outlook 2010, you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about conversation views. Much cleaner way of managing threaded discussions and threaded emails. to really improve the integration of multi-mailbox search and the fact that they're now enabling retention policies, new personal email archiving and compliance capabilities. These are new features that are now part of the 2010 stack, if you will. And a much greater IT control with the new GUI and the real PowerShell, as we talked about earlier. So going over to SharePoint, this is one of the big upgrades in my opinion. BPOS V1 in the SharePoint world was about 35 to 40% of what the on-premise solution was. So if you compared the online SharePoint Online in 2007 land compared to the on-premise version, it's about 40% capable. In the Office 365 world, they've really made some major strides forward, and it's now about 80–85% of what the on-premise role is. And one note that I will say, as I heard from Microsoft, their future applications and their future servers, they're going to start them in the cloud and then roll into on-premise. That is their desire going forward. In the past, it's been on-premise and then we'll support in the cloud. They're going to be switching that around. They're going to go to the cloud first and then push it down to on-premise. So we're going to see that over the next few years. But things like in SharePoint Online, much greater improved team site, project sites, my sites. There's ability to have extranet sites so you can share information with customers and partners. The ability to have intranet sites. You will have now the ability to create simple public-facing sites, and a whole slew of information, integration with business connectivity services, Visio services, the Outlook, the Office web apps. These are all now part of SharePoint Online, and we'll talk a little more about that in the future. And then switching over to Microsoft Lync Online. It is now one of those combined entities. It's not two separate applications. It is now a much more streamlined user experience. So, we talked a little bit about the flexible purchasing options, and we're talking about we now have monthly or annual billing options. We only need to buy what we need and scale up or down as needed. These numbers that you see here are all Microsoft Retail numbers, and we'll talk a little bit about these two plans, the Enterprise plan and the Kiosk plan, in just a little bit. But I do want to just kind of highlight, as you can see, the lowest starting point for the Enterprise plan is $10 a user. Now, what that gives you, and without some of the other bells and whistles, and then we'll show you what's going to be in E2 and 3. So, one key piece for Office 365 is for small business and professionals. They're coming out with a plan that's about $6 per user per month, and it's focused on the 1 to 25 users. A max of 50 are allowed. If you're larger than that, they're going to push you into the enterprise market, which is not a bad thing. There are a lot of there's much more capability in the larger plan. This is really focused on small businesses that don't have a large current infrastructure. I would focus this on a company that basically is willing to give up Exchange and SharePoint and these things on-prem, move everything to the cloud, and basically migrate and support everything in the cloud. So, the question is, when is Office 365 not enough? Well, when you're over 50 users, of course. But if you need Active Directory synchronization, if you want to sync your local AD with the cloud, then you move into the larger Office 365 for enterprise. If you need archiving for legal compliance, if you need access to BlackBerry Enterprise Server, we talked about the user, and if you really need a 24/7 phone support, much higher touch community support. This is an enterprise level commitment from Microsoft. So there's two main user segments when it comes to Office 365 for enterprise, and they're a kiosk worker and an information worker. A kiosk worker is a low-cost offering that Microsoft is providing for individuals that don't need the enterprise features. They have a smaller mailbox. You can talk about a 500 mailbox limit. No SharePoint allocation. They use the Outlook web access. They do not use Outlook client. There is access for POP support, so you could use a non-Outlook client also, but they still get access to messaging and calendar and contacts. They still have antivirus, site search, and they do have access to Office web apps. So this is a very broken down SKU, but it is cheaper. So if you have people on manufacturing floors, if you have order entry clerks, if you have people that don't need the full suite, this is a very economical way. And again, you can mix and match these without any real issue. So moving over to the right, we talk about what are the key features of the information worker SKU. Excuse me. It's a much larger mailbox. We're talking about 25 gig mailbox. We're talking 500 megs of personal SharePoint storage space, full client connectivity, again, using MAPI, which is through the Outlook client, full access to mobility, they're able to sync with their iPhone or really any active sync device, Windows Mobile, etc. Gain access to the real-time communications via link, and again, they get access to the full suite of services. So just a quick little chart here. We won't spend a lot of time, but if you look at some different offerings, I like to feel that this E3 offering is really the sweet spot. $24 per month per user, you get access to 95% of all Microsoft has to offer, and it is a very compelling solution if you start doing the math. The only thing that it does not offer is voice. And voice is something that is still coming. It is not. It's going to be probably coming in Q1 or Q2 of next year, and that's really a much larger integration with your on-premise PBX. For the majority of clients that we see, I feel that this E3 suite is really a good sweet spot if they're looking to move to Exchange and SharePoint and do the full suite online. So again, talking a little bit about the kiosk worker spends 5 or 10% or less time at their PC. They share a terminal. They haven't had access to corporate mailbox in the past, and these are typically examples of line workers, retail clerks, mail couriers. Again, just to show that there are different offerings for different levels of users. So transitioning from BPOS, the current version, to Microsoft, there's a lot of clients out there that are currently using the current BPOS V1 version. And how do they move to Office 365? These migrations will begin shortly after Office 365 is available in GA. The customer remains in full control, and they decide with Microsoft when they're going to be migrated and the schedule. Microsoft will issue a question and answer letter, and we'll ask you that we'd like to schedule it during this time. For some smaller organizations, it could be as simple as a few hours on a night or a weekend, and the next time you log in, everything has been migrated. For larger customers, let's say GlaxoSmithKline, they have 90,000 current users. Well, that's not going to be overnight. That's going to have to be a migrated plan, and it's on your terms and your current IT schedule. The main thing that Microsoft has committed to is that there will be an uninterrupted messaging flow during migration. So you don't have to worry that during your migration time you're going to be having to check 2 different mailboxes. You're going to have to deal with, where's my mail, kicking everybody off. They've committed that there will be an uninterrupted messaging flow between the 2 systems, and they will provide 24/7 IT level support. So as far as planning, what do you have to do? There is a one-time setup required per PC. It's a very small services connector, one-time app that they may push down via Windows Update. They're not sure yet, but if not, it is something that has to be run one time on the machine. The operating system, they do require Windows 7, Vista, XP, SP3, and they are supporting the Mac OS X. As far as web-based clients, IE7 on Vista, IE8, Firefox, Safari, and Mac. As far as Office client access, Office 2010, Office 2007 SP2, Office Mac 2008. They will not support Office 2003. So that is something that you are going to have to plan for. You do need to, if your organization is at Office 2003, you will need to do the migration. Now, the beauty of buying into the services that you do get those licenses, but you do have to plan for that migration. So, please be aware of that. So let's talk a little bit about Neudesic service offerings. What does Neudesic do that helps their clients gain access and really move to the cloud? And we developed what we like to call a quick start program. And it's really a three-step program based on pre-migration, migration, and post-migration. Pretty simple, but if you think about it, there's a lot of auditing, there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of things that we have to think about, especially for a large organization. If you currently have a 3,000 or 4,000 user Exchange organization, we have to plan why we're going to move, when we're going to move, what's going to move. There is a certain amount of time based on that. The migration it's a standard cost per mailbox or user, and then post-migration there is a full QA, a full documentation of what was performed, training of the local resources, and then a full UAT, which is basically user acceptance testing. So we'll talk a little bit about why and kind of these six steps here, and it is based on developing that gap analysis with the client, establishing that partner and customer expectation, putting together a detailed discovery plan, developing our migration strategy and plan, creating test accounts, help the customer develop their change management. We don't want to do this cavalierly. These things have to be done methodically. This is email after all. This is not something that you're willing to deal without. Pilot. Take a test case, 20 users, move them up, make sure everything's flowing correctly, and then we execute the actual full migration. And then there's post-migration, system documentation, decommissioning of old AD and MX records, etc. So going into each one of these, we really talk about, we have a cloud services assessment. It is an online assessment that we walk you through. At the end of the day, it's there to set the right expectation. It's there for you to understand what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. Our job is to manage and communicate that impact to your business process. And it's really to ask that question, if email's down, what's affected? And we need to know that. We need to understand what that is part of your core business. We need to understand and keep focused on the business value. This is your business that's flowing in and out. And then we have a certain amount of proof of concept presentations and migration plans that we work with you, and communication plans to be able to start communicating with your users. At 60 days, before migration, send out this requirement and send out this email letting people know this is going to happen. 45 days, 30, 15, 5. Really make sure people are not surprised. So as far as developing a plan, our discovery is focused on identifying what those potential issues are, and it's identifying what services, software that you're currently using. Are you using some integration with Notes? Are you using some BlackBerry mobility? What SharePoint site collections are integrated? These are all things that have to be planned for. As we move Exchange and SharePoint into the cloud, these procedures and these applications have to move also. But evaluate your existing architecture and really come up with the appropriate business requirements for Active Directory, federated ADFS integration, single sign-on. A lot of things have to be thought about that just need to be planned out correctly. Again, next step, we're going to identify all the technical details. And it is knowing what questions to ask and where to go. I mean, for us, it is if your IT organization isn't comfortable with what's happening, they need to know where they're going to go to. We need to build this onboarding and migration plan and build that with you, the customer. So the next step is really build. It's actually doing the migration. We talked a little bit about setting up trial accounts and proof of concept prototypes. Really building that communication plan with your organization. Now we start talking about actually piloting, changing some of the SMTP pointers, validate which email domains are actually going to be migrated, setting the default domain within the organization. And if appropriate, install the Active Directory synchronization services, ADFS, all the interconnectivity plumbing that needs to be there to put in place. Next, and really the final phase, as far as in delivery, is piloting and the delivery of the service and having the pilot users perform that UAT. Make sure that those pilot users are understanding what they're getting. They know what they're what they're accessing, and that they feel that this has been a successful pilot. And we have this, this BPOS Office 365. It's a very simple engagement checklist. It's much longer than this. I really just kind of truncated this to show you as part of our offering. These are things that we're putting into place, and any Neudesic service offering is using this as their engagement checklist to make sure you the client understand what's going to be happening, and we the partner are going through the appropriate steps and identifying the appropriate steps. And there are templates around these. There's project plans. There is a lot of documentation that is generated that stays with you after the project is over. That's the end of my presentation. So, what we'd like to do there is really open the floor up to Q&A, and if there are any immediate questions, I can certainly try to answer them.
Thank you, Mitesh, and thank you, Bill. We did have a question come through, and just as a reminder to everybody, to ask a question, click on the Q&A verbiage at the top left side of your screen, type your question, then click the Ask button. One of the questions that we had come through was, do you have any concern that the government can subpoena to access your data in the cloud?
It is a good question. This was actually a very heated topic at a large Microsoft training that I was lucky to go to. At the end of the day, the government can subpoena your information, whether it's in the cloud or whether it's on premise, but they can't do it without your knowledge. They can't do it without your acceptance of that. Microsoft is committing to data privacy. The information is encrypted in transit. It's not encrypted at rest, but it is encrypted in transit. But at the end of the day, if the government wants to access your data, they have to go through. They have to let you know, and they also have to let Microsoft know. And there has to be a full subpoena.
Thanks, Mitesh. Another question that came through was, are the prices quoted per user, including the Neudesic migration services?
That is a good question. The answer is no. The quoted costs per user are the Microsoft licensing fees, basically, for the service, for the actual Office 365 service, and those are, on a per user basis. The Neudesic migration services are based on, a set of, migration hours that that are basically customized for each organization. It's based on the size and complexity of the organization. Some organizations are actually able to do this migration without any Neudesic help. Maybe with just a little bit of guidance. Larger organizations are probably going to need a little bit of help to make sure that things are planned and migrated correctly.
Another question was, where does Azure, Windows, and/or SQL fit into the Office 365 model?
It is a good question. Azure in the Office 365 model is coming. It is there. If you look at things like SharePoint, SharePoint in the 365 world does handle third-party code, so you can have Azure third-party Azure systems there. One thing to note on the 2010 and really the current 365 offering is that there is a concept of sandbox code. So you can write code, but it is in the sandbox. It is not fully accessible to to the SharePoint stack, and that really comes down to the fact that this is a multi-tenancy system. That these are not dedicated servers for your SharePoint. These are balanced all over the world. So we will see a much more greater integration with Azure, and the same thing with CRM Online. Right now CRM Online is especially the 2010-2011 version, that's just being released. That will also integrate very cleanly with the full Office 365 suite.
Thanks, Mitesh. Another question was, how are backups and restores handled? Is backup a separate license?
Meredith, I'm having trouble with the audio. If you could just kind of tell me which one of these questions is it? 1 through 6. Which one that you asked?
It's the fourth one down, and it's how are backups and restores handled? Is backup a separate license? Do you see that one?
No, I'm still having trouble with the audio. Let's talk a little bit about this last one. Given the data is not encrypted while at rest, what responsibility is Microsoft taking for any information that might be lost in a data breach? Microsoft takes this very seriously. They're spending a lot of time and a lot of money to protect your data. If you think about the Exchange data, it's encrypted in the information store by itself. It is not. It's a proprietary format which makes it encrypted. They're just not re-encrypting it at rest. So it's not as if it's stored in plain text, via SMTP headers or whatnot. It is still stored in the same information store model. It's just not re-encrypted, and the reason why they're not re-encrypting it is, of course, for speed and for scalability. They're not looking to encrypt the data. So the next one is there a provision to bring data and/or services back in-house? It's an excellent question, and the answer is yes. Moving to the cloud and back can be done at your leisure. Really, you're basically, backing up your mailbox and, migrating it back to an on-premise mailbox, changing DNS and, routing, mail routing, and, you're back in-house. So, hopefully that answers your question. Yes, they are making those provisions. So backups and restores, how are they handled? Is it a separate license? Good question. This was a topic that we were just discussing internally this morning. There are some additional licensing for additional storage. By default, Microsoft does have backups, and they basically back it up as far as replicating it across multiple data centers and multiple locations. As far as if you lose mail or if you have to roll back, if you deleted something, that's something that there is a separate license for, I believe. But that's something that I would have to do a little more research and get back to you, unfortunately.
Mitesh, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you very clearly.
Oh, good. I'm not sure if you caught this question. How does Microsoft CRM Online fit into this model?
I kind of spoke about it when we were talking about Azure. The CRM online model does fit very cleanly. It will integrate with the Office, the Outlook 2010 client, and you're now able to manage your contacts and your meetings and whatnot that were in CRM on your on-premise solution, and it does interact very, very well.
Thanks, Mitesh. If anyone has any more questions, please feel free to type them in at this time. In the meantime, I'm going to click through a few polling questions, and we greatly appreciate your feedback. The first question: was this content helpful for your business? Yes or no? Give it a few more seconds. Great, thank you. The second question: please rate the presentation content, excellent, good, or poor. Give it a few more seconds for everyone. Great, thank you. And the last polling question: would you like us to schedule a follow-up, yes or no? Give it a few more seconds for everybody. All right, thank you. Let's see, did we have another question come through? All right. If there are no further questions, we'd like to thank Mitesh and Bill again for the wonderful presentation. We will be forwarding out the recorded version of this presentation when it becomes available. If you have any further questions about the presentation, please feel free to email Mitesh. And do you have your email up on the slide, Mitesh?
I do not.
Okay. It's mitesh.patel@neudesic.com, and we will be including that in the follow-up as well. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webcast. You're now free to disconnect. Thank you.